ghost producer.
Man, that's got me ready to go to Ibiza. Speaking of Ibiza, welcome to Conversations with Jack, Valentin. Really appreciate you coming on today. Shout out Sisla for the production. I appreciate it.
That song has no business being such a banger, honestly.
It really is a complete banger. We can only bring that energy here. So speaking of Ibiza, it looks like you're somewhere fun. Where are you, Valentin?
Yeah, I'm in Athens, which if people follow me on Twitter have seen, I've been just tweeting about every second day because I can't believe how under the radar it is. Like, especially for crypto, because literally 5 miles from me is the freaking birthplace of democracy. And it's as epic as you would imagine walking up to the Acropolis. Like, I cannot believe that this isn't we need crypto conferences in Athens and just like have some governance decisions on Acropolis right next to the Pantheon. Like, there's so many cool ideas in Athens to do. The city is super vibey.
I mean, I'm super into that. Also cheap too, right?
Yes, though not if you talk to locals, because inflation has been pretty hard. But if you're not local, yes, it is not expensive. I mean, given that any other city I'm at is like New York or San Francisco or Barcelona or Paris, yes, this is definitely a cheaper city
compared to that. Yeah. All those Lisbon folks, you should look at Greece too. More Mediterranean weather, less like California perpetual gloom.
Yeah, look, you're next to the
sunsets.
You're next to the ocean, but it's cold and really rough. And here there's like tiny waves and the water is warm. So yeah, you should come to Greece, everybody. It's highly recommended.
I mean, I really would really love to get to Greece. So Valentin, what do you say you do when people ask you these days?
Depends on who asks me, I guess. If I meet people in the street, I say I work in finance and tech.
That's hilarious. I say I'm a software engineer.
Yeah, it's like half truths are good if you don't know the person. If you can't go yet, you keep it at that. I mean, a little bit of everything, a lot of BD and management stuff nowadays. We scaled to like 15 people, so a lot of work is just kind of getting the scale to be efficiently used, and a lot of stuff that people don't see until it starts bearing fruits down the line because the structures are set well in place, because people know what is happening, why we're doing this. It's a lot of communication. Almost every day it's just a communication job. Like, you get data feed from outside people, inside people, partners, non-partners, investors, team, and then you just have to make sure the right people know the right stuff. Well, how would you describe your job? Because I would say we both are in this kind of, well, how do you say what we do,
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a few different levels. There's the I'm a software engineer level, which always cracks people up. But I think, I'm a founder of a company, and we're building software products, and I think that comes with a lot of that admin and overhead stuff that is decidedly not sexy.
Yes, there is a long rat's tail that's, if you write the title down and you say founder and you start apprentices, the rest is conveniently always
ignored.
Even
and
though
people just say one word, founder.
Founder. They're like, oh, that is great. And you have apprentices line. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's that's a funny one.
/legal /admin /
for real
/ time zones don't matter / when do you turn off?
You're speaking of time zones don't matter, most of your team is in Europe, right?
Centered around Europe. Yeah, I think we definitely work around European time zone. We have a bit of Asia and a bit of American time zones, but it's pretty convenient to be in Europe. I feel like Europe kind of won the time zone wars internationally speaking.
They lucked out.
Yeah, I mean, the middle of the world is pushing towards east, right? So with that, the time zone middle is pushing east. I mean, look, I know you're on a beautiful West Coast. I was there just recently, and
This is the worst time zone. We've lost the time zone wars. Just
you lost. Yeah. Like it's not even you don't even have a fighting chance. Like I had to wake up at like 5:36 when I was in the West Coast, and then I would have like 4 hours with the team.
This is my schedule and has been for a long time. I don't love
it. At least you have a bit more concentration geographically on the team, a tiny bit more.
Well, that's true. Yeah, we are centered around America.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, what's the team working on these days? What are you guys shipping? Because like I see all this Quasar news all the time, and you guys are rocking.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, we, a lot of the announcements have been overshadowed by the withdrawal issues, which we pushed the first fix, which worked for many, many people. Now some people are hitting edge cases again, so that's another topic. But apart from kind of the withdrawal issues, so much shipping and like so many updates every day. We just open sourced our entire repo, which that's a huge step. We just kind of did it. Like we didn't really drum up the market.
Oh, you guys finally did.
Yes. Less. So now it's like, go ahead, look into it, give your opinions. It's also pretty exciting because I would say with Stride, it's not about who's first or second for me, but with Stride, we are the most complex ICA implementations, ICQ implementations. There's a lot of, again, imperfections, which is why there's issues with the vaults. But now that we open sourced it, we invite other teams to look at it, see how they can maybe take it further, what they think about it. And it's overall going to be pretty positive for the IBC ecosystem, in my opinion. Otherwise, DLL signing was like the biggest news. I worked in the shadows on this for a month. So no one, even internally, I wasn't sharing it too much, because if you hype people up too much and then they can't, it doesn't happen, then it's not good for everybody. So DLL is pretty massive. To that point, as someone of Sommelier, huge shout out to Sommelier. Could have been in the way, could have made this not happen. We're not in the way. Zaki was helpful. The entire Sommelier team was helpful. Everybody was really, really positive on getting the strategist team onto IBC. So super exciting. Thanks for that, honestly. And I'm pretty hyped for Cosmos to have a professional strategist team now, which is pretty sick.
I mean, they're incredible. DeFi Project's doing an amazing job. And I mean, I think that like the Quasar sommelier thing is very interesting, because in Som, the core goal and I think that the core goal has been to go bring this technology that we have on Cosmos, use it to improve Ethereum, and go after that market. And that's fantastic. And Valentin, what you've been doing is helping grow this Cosmos market. And what I think is kind of unique is that the two founders, you and Zaki, recognized that these are not the same product. They're kind of fundamentally different products, and they're not competitive. And there's no reason to compete with each other, and we all win more if we can kind of share these things. And I think
so happy about that.
Yeah, if you look at strategies, like broadly as a financial product, i.e., like complex financial products, it is not a winner-take-all market. It is a market where there are many players and many entrants, and the ones that are most effective work together. And I think that it's been really good to see this sort of turn out in reality. So I was also stoked about this happening as somebody who's involved in both of these projects.
Dude, it's incredibly exciting, because in the very early days, very early days, what I would hear in the seed pitch is well, how are you different than Sommelier, right? And I'm really happy that apparently both teams, Som and us, have done such a good job in kind of distinctly explaining what we're doing, what we're not doing, and how it's collaborative, to the point now where I would say our relationship with Sommelier has never been better. Zaki is super helpful and open to work. We've already talked with the team a couple times, and obviously, even with the different approaches of ETH and Cosmos and Gravity Bridge versus a local deployment versus IBC deployment, there's still meta level issues that both teams have exactly the same and are facing exactly the same. And there's absolutely no reason that you shouldn't share expertise on that front to build a better product. And grow the pie mentality is so real. We are so far away from having to eat someone else's pie to have more pie. Like we are years away as a market and as a ecosystem for that to happen. So it's really, really cool that both teams acknowledge that and are working closer together now, more than ever. And kind of the joint philosophy of decentralized asset management, just bringing that out there, because I think as markets mature, and it's going to be much more obvious in Cosmos very soon, it's already very obvious in Ethereum, you get the disconnect of like people that don't have time to deal with yield generation every day, or don't have the expertise, or don't want to acquire the expertise because maybe they're super busy and they're doing so many other things. And obviously there's so much stuff in crypto happening all the time that you need to combine strategists and asset managers with kind of capital from the entire world. And if we mean DeFi honestly decentralized, then we cannot have entrance points and products gate kept. So super excited for that. Honestly, I think the entire narrative needs to be pushed forward. I'm pretty happy that Sam and us are pushing this forward, and yeah, super excited for the road ahead. Really, really cool, honestly.
I mean, I think just to sort of like double click on this point, one of the key narratives for crypto has always been financial inclusion, censorship resistance. Like this is what we're talking about when we talk about a lot of these technical concepts is the ability for anyone who wants to participate in these high-level financial markets at whatever level they want.
Wait, I thought the point is using centralized bridges to get airdrops.
But that's so shitposty. I love it. But like I think that it's easy to look at a protocol like Quasar or SOM and be like, that's built for whales. But what you don't see is that internally, I know that this is the case at SOM, and I'm guessing this is also the case at Quasar. We've got these channels where you can see deposits going into the protocol, and the ones that get the most likes in those channels are the small ones.
I have that channel as well because I follow Josh on Twitter.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Josh just pulls out the highlights. He pulls out the big numbers. But like internally in the channels, we see people putting in like 1/10 of an ETH, like a few $100, and like those are the users that are really going to take these things from where they are now to much larger. And like what we just don't have right now is a lot of those users in crypto. They will be back, and when they're back, like these are the products they want. They don't want to like click around yield farms all day. They want to build sustainable income from their capital, and they want to be able to do that in a way that's the smartest possible. And like this is what Defined Logics does, is they go find these opportunities in the market, these areas where there's risk that's mispriced, and they sell that to users. And like if you want to talk about actual decentralization, this is actual decentralization. And the way that it works in traditional financial markets is with advisors in that whole system. And the reason why there are so many of those folks is because everyone wants kind of a different solution. And platforms like Quasar and Sommelier, like we're bringing that to you guys in a crypto sense. And this is a huge, huge business. And it's one that I'm incredibly bullish on. I guess like any other fun Quasar stuff that's happening here soon?
Yeah, I'm going to fix my light in a second, but to your point as well, I just went into our channel, and I guess it's not really alpha leak, but to let the people know, like our average depositor is like $400, $500. And that's kind of the entire point. Like if you're trying to go to any asset manager nowadays, if they're not going to pitch you a product from a bank that has 5% carrying fee and like sub S&P 500 returns, whatever, you're going to be told that you need at least $250,000 or something to get invested. And in crypto, the small fish are the one that make this happen. We have like 1,500 depositors just in Cosmos, just for osmosis products that are just aggregating different pools. And pretty exciting to see kind of that growing, the numbers growing. And obviously well depositors, I would get the likes on Twitter and the TVL numbers up. But what excites us is like, just average Joes putting money in. I'm gonna change my camera.
It's why we built this shit, Valentin. Yeah, go change your camera angle. Get that done.
Yes. We go ahead. I'm just gonna flip it. There you go.
Oh, that sucks. That's an even worse view. Christ, Valentin. Why didn't you like pay a little bit more for something decent? Christ.
I mean,
anyway.
You say this, but this is literally a studio. Like I paid this.
I'm joking. I know.
I paid this for the view. This is a studio. This is like
that view is sick. It reminds me of when I got on the phone with Cito, and he's in Dubai in that absurd apartment he's in, and just the view is like, oh, just like looking at the spire in the middle of Dubai.
I had a call with someone who had a penthouse on the 55th floor in Manhattan, and they had a floor-to-ceiling window right, like the desk was against the window, and conveniently the camera was obviously angled towards the window, and it looked like this guy is calling it from a helicopter. I mean, it's just completely ridiculous angle of, like, you look down on buildings that are as high as the tallest building in Germany, like just looking down on them.
Yeah,
with mayhem.
Man, this is like this discussion around financial inclusion makes me want to kind of like talk about current user experience challenges in crypto.
Yes, go for it. That's just
yeah, because like, you know, I think that like MetaMask coming to Cosmos is this big thing, and everyone's excited. But like,
do you want to hear something? Do you want to hear?
Yeah,
something
please. Yeah.
I think people should not overhype the launch date. They should overhype what the launch date starts as a process. I think people expect the launch date of MetaMask and Cosmos to be, oh, look, this is exactly the same as ETH, which it's probably not going to be. It's going to be, sure, you can sign transactions maybe, right? Like starting. And I think that I just hope that Cosmos is not putting too much kind of emphasis on the date of it happening. I think the much more exciting thing is that now it's being worked on.
Yeah, I mean, you know, dates take forever. Like, ask me about Noble USDC launch, please. Don't actually just like don't ask me about that.
many times in private tag, many times.
Man, yeah, it's soon TM, and something good happened recently.
Don't ask me about airdrop dates.
I'm more bullish now that it's going to be even sooner than soon. So we'll see how it goes.
Don't carrot too much.
It's just like it's a little bit of carrot, not too much. Well, interesting news in the AEZ lately. Duality and Neutron merging too.
Yeah, acquisition talks, super interesting. I have so many thoughts on this. I'm gonna go on a 5-minute monologue ramp over here. So
please do, because like you and I have had discussions about protocol mergers almost since I met you, and I think it is one of the most under-discussed topics in crypto.
Yes.
Because if you look, like, just to sort of like set the stage for your 5-minute rant, which I really want to hear, when industries go through periods of downturn, generally what happens is consolidation. And typically that happens through M&A activity. And like, because of a lot of reasons, we don't see as much of this in crypto. So like, what do you think, Valentin?
All right. So as you've already prefaced perfectly, since the first talk we ever had, we talked about this, because fundamentally one of the first things that, like, no one should have this, so I hope no one has it, but if you would have the first deck that Quasar ever, like the first deck we had, like the first draft, November 2021, one of the things that we were criticizing was fragmentation of the ecosystem. Just kind of, it's getting more and more complicated, and like the same amount of money just being spread out more and more, right? Like we haven't solved the coming in of liquidity into the ecosystem, and now we're literally just dispersing it more and more every single day, which is not great in my opinion. And so I've always been a big fan of consolidation, and I'm really excited. Like this proposal now on Neutron is the first time it's now happening in Cosmos now. Like kind of waiting on this for 1.5 years and seeing just more and more stuff pop up, and then even like internally, you know, not leaking any names, not leaking any stages, but like even time and time ago thinking about how can teams work together and make this happen and whatever, and then always breaking apart because, you know, different philosophies or different stages or greed, whatever it's going to be, it doesn't even matter at that point. So it not happening. But now, to some degree, I'm very grateful that Zaki wrote this kind of FOMO sounding tweet about Cosmos only having, you know, a couple months to figure itself out. And like, yes, no one likes to hear this. Insert, they didn't hate Jesus because he lied. They hated him because he told them the truth. Insert that meme. Because fundamentally, it's incredibly right that we need to be in a state of deeply thinking about everything we do and how we do it. And one of the things that Cosmos, I think, needs to improve, and again, I'm super excited to see it happening and improving now, is mergers. That is super freaking cool. Acquisitions, mergers, by the way, on that front, like interchangeable on that front. Like the Neutron team wants to acquire the Duality team for 2.5% of Neutron total supply. And it's super exciting because if this goes through, it's also 2VC funded chains, right? So this would also prove to some degree that cap table complexities can be figured out. So basically, even though we don't have an entire investment banking industry behind us, like what does investment banking do? All they do is just merge and acquisitions. Like there's literally floors upon floors in big banks that are just dealing with mergers and acquisitions. And it's, can I swear in this, by the way? I'm going to wait for you.
Oh, yeah, you can say whatever the fuck you want. Go for it.
It's a fucking shit show to do huge mergers. It's so complicated because there's so many different company structures. There's so many different cap holder structures. There's so many different preferred and non-preferred shares, cash and stock deal. There's so much complexity. And ironically, even though our systems are arguably more complex, I actually always thought it's relatively easy in crypto because there's just tokens. There's not preferred tokens, right? There's not C-level tokens. There's not a chain that's this and a chain that's that. We have decentralized chains with decentralized validators and a token per chain. And the cap table is public, right? Like information is public, it's accessible. And you have a mobile governance structure. You don't need to fly in 70 heads of different companies into one room and like try to make it work. Like put up a gov proposal, talk to the people on the internet, right? Validators are ready, people with tokens are ready to vote. And so it's so cool that this is now feasible and being tackled. And I am especially excited because it means user experience improvement.
It does.
Than anything else.
Yes.
IBC is the shit. However, liquidity fragmentation is not the shit. Liquidity access with IBC is the shit. Fragmentation is not the shit. And consolidating different products, especially products that have market fit like Duality and Neutron combined, right? Like Neutron needs a DEX. Duality is a pretty specific DEX implementation. Let's go for it. Is beneficial for the entire ecosystem. And I expect us to see more of those happening. I expect us to see more and more token swaps happening. Like that's one of the things that I think is like in a light version of doing it, right? Which also traditional companies don't really do because it's so hard to pull off. But token projects can just have governance proposals and just, swap some community fund assets, right? Ethereum has done this for a while.
This is kind of what mesh security is, right?
In a more complex security alignment, NATO-style structure, yes. But fundamentally, yes, it's economic alignment through security alignment or through user alignment or through product alignment. It's alignment causing economic alignment of any sort. And one thing that I think why we're going to talk about this probably in the future as well, like IBC generally, is like what Cosmos needs is alignment. And that's kind of what we're missing. And we're missing it by design, to be honest, because we're one of the most decentralized ecosystems in the entire space. And I wrote a long tweet about this recently, how you build systems with an expectation. You can't expect the system to be different. And if we build a system that's by design sovereign and fragmented, you cannot expect everyone to hop in liquidity-wise and everyone to hop in and be excited. Like we are fragmenting this on purpose. We're breaking it down to pieces, checking what sticks out. And now we are combining working pieces and mashing them together. And I think that's what's so exciting about the new stage of Cosmos is that the alarm bells have been rung, but instead of people fleeing and being sad, sure, if you look at some token prices, there is some fleeing, but it's not happening on the kind of liquidity flow. It's happening out of certain assets potentially because but fundamentally it's
also not happening from the development side. It's not happening from the interest side. Yeah.
From a developer perspective, we're in massive growth mode. There's more and more teams every single day. From a philosophy standpoint, there's more and more alignment. Like if I talk to people, if you talk to people, there's a lot of agreement, much more than you would think if you go on Twitter. And I am just hyped for that because alignment creates a parabolic curve of value. Alignment is an X2 game. It's not a linear game. And so to end my rant, super freaking cool. I hope there's more mergers. I hope there's more acquisitions. I hope there's more token swaps. I hope there's more working together happening. And to some degree, just the SOM team being cool with us being cool with SOM and talking about the same issues we're facing and how to solve them. All of this is part of this new narrative. And I'm really freaking excited about this because it encompasses a non-delusional version of the Wag Me philosophy, which just implied we're all going to make money. No, now this is we're all going to make better products if we work together.
Yeah. I was looking for the exact numbers, but as far as protocol mergers go, I think you might have seen that the Prop 72, we wrapped that up for good this week. And we were able to show a 28x return to Atom stakeholders to the community pool, and we returned funds. And a lot of that was as a result of the unclaimed neutron airdrop tokens, which ended up being a very material amount. So for all the folks saying that when Neutron wins, Atom doesn't win, well, I would say we do win because the Atom community pool has some strong participation in that neutron distribution, which is great.
I think that there's so many interesting challenges for Atom right now. I think maybe this is a good segue, a natural segue. Atom, Jack, what's up?
Yeah.
Right? Like Atom is in a weird state right now. I think that's very public.
Yeah.
I think we're reading. I mean, you know stuff's happening if you're reading poems on crypto Twitter. I have read a poem about Atom breaking some guy's heart. I forgot the guy's name. I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you out right now, but it was a beautiful poem. And I think that it's.
I mean, I think that it gets back to the alignment conversation we were just having. Atom did a terrible job of aligning core contributors. And what we've seen is that created this Cambrian explosion of a lot of activity within the ecosystem, and it expanded. But the lack of alignment with those core contributors is showing up right as Atom is needing to scale and really needing to kick on the gas. And what they're finding is that the people, teams, and organizations that they need to do that are not there because they haven't built them. And that's just a hard reality.
Yeah. Let me actually interview you for a second here, because I think that this is a perspective there's a lot of people don't have necessarily. So, I mean, first things first, if token price goes down, never pleasant. And I've also gotten some flack recently because I've been calling out what I see going wrong with Atom, which again, they hated him, not because he lied, but I want to state this in this room. I would, and I've posted this too, but I don't think it got a lot of views. I would be really, really happy if Atom Hub actually becomes like a hub that has like Cosmosm and has like that is not a future that Quasar co-founder doesn't want. Just because I am saying that right now, I feel like there's a bit of delusion if you don't see that stuff is not going well, does not mean I am happy stuff's not going well. No, it just means I would like people to sit down and make stuff good. And so, Jack, as someone that has some people asking you how to make stuff good, why has Atom gotten to this point from your perspective?
I think that what we were just talking about alignment is a huge thing. And then I think vision is another huge missing piece. The Cosmos white paper laid out an incredibly complex system that we shipped. Took us years, took a ton of money, took a lot of effort from a lot of folks and a lot of independent organizations working together.
The Cosmos ecosystem came out of Atom.
Yeah, it came out of Atom, but there was no, go back and read the white paper. There's there will be a blockchain. It's called Atom. It's going to make money on transaction fees. And there was no plan for it. And, Sunny, I think, was probably the strongest proponent of the ICS vision from the beginning. And, I saw a meme that really resonated with me recently, which was the Gru meme where he's got the cards and he's got the plan that he's making. And it was bet everything on ICS, vote down Atom 2, vote down Cosmos on the hub, bet everything on ICS. And then he's this is kind of where we are. As a community, we've gotten ourselves into this place, and now people are we're not happy with the place we're in. And we're well, that's where we're at. So I think that, the combination of a lack of vision, a lack of alignment, intentional alignment for core contributors, leading to core contributor flight from Atom as a project, plus this governance dysfunction has gotten us where we are right now. And it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out over the next few months. But, there's a very real reality in which Atom has birthed IBC and the rest of this space and just kind of collapses. Like that's a reality that we could be staring at.
I mean, to some degree, first of all, I'm going to hone down a little bit more to find out more about your perspective. But to some degree, I think that actually IBC is in a much stronger position because Atom wasn't able to do that, to be honest, which is a silver lining. It's a silver lining.
It is.
Nonetheless, we should also acknowledge that I think the community has had some, there's reasons that Atom 2.0 and Quasar wasn't not passed, right? And I would like to know kind of what would you see as some valid criticisms why that was voted down? Because you mentioned misalignment for core contributors, right? I think for anyone that's not a builder and is not like talking to you weekly like we do, what do you mean by that?
What do I mean by misalignment for core contributors, or what do I mean by the Atom 2? So misalignment for core contributors.
It's the same answer, right? Like, what does misalignment mean for core contributors, and then how did that cause those things to not pass? I guess that's very similar kind of answer.
Yeah. So, because of the way that Atom was born, most of the tokens were given out in the fundraiser, and the two organizations that had Atoms from the jump were the ICF and AIB. They're the founders who've been very richly compensated, and as they should be. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to grow and sustain a project, the second level of contributors, the 10, 15 people under the founders who, moved mountains to make this thing happen, you need to incentive align those people because they're talented. They can go do something else. And if you don't, they're not going to keep working and doing incredible work for no money. And when they can get paid very well in other places, it's just like you're asking people to go against their fundamental human nature.
So effectively,
their interests.
So effectively, the Atom Hub had brain capital that it couldn't retain.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
Brain capital went to the United States to get higher salaries versus home country that wasn't willing to pay them what they felt like they could get.
Exactly.
There is a huge irony in that being the issue for the highest value chain out that's a core Cosmos. Interesting.
Yeah. So it's very and I think it has a lot to do with the founding organizations and the choices that they've made, and none of that's really been on chain. But what we've seen is the dysfunction in the founding organizations that's been unable to align those contributors has been reflected in the governance dysfunction within Atom. And for birthing a protocol like IBC, you can hardly imagine a more appropriate birth for such a protocol. In the same way that Satoshi was able to be anonymous and step back and allow Bitcoin to thrive, maybe in order for IBC to thrive, the Cosmos Hub needs to step back and allow IBC to kind of move forward.
See, I think
that's one potential future. And I'm sure there are folks listening to this who are like, oh my God, Jack is saying a lot of apocalyptic things, but I think it's really important to have frank conversations about this stuff so that, if some of these realities that folks like myself and Valentin and other folks within the ecosystem see come to pass, people don't get surprised by it. Like, these are real problems. These are real issues that have affected other ecosystems, companies, and pieces of open source software in the past. And there's like a lot of prior art on how these things play out.
However, to flip the script a little bit, it also has a lot of things going for it, to be honest, which I think people forget.
It does.
First of all, gigantic volume, which any founder, anyone listening that also is, working on the Cosmos chain will know that is a monumental task to have high volume. Exchange lists left and right.
It's also crazy.
Also, something I just saw today, more than 1 million token holders.
Yeah.
That is...
There's a huge install base. There's a huge install base.
One of the most decentralized projects in all of crypto, arguably.
I don't think it, like... Yeah, I think it is the most decentralized project in all of crypto. I mean, you could argue Ethereum is, but I think that... Yeah, like, even with Ethereum, what you see there is significant centralization around this core set of contributors that have been there since the ICO, essentially. And like, that's a very different dynamic than what we see in Cosmos. And I think that, when you have one token distribution that is supposed to be the end all be all, you get these sort of insiders and you get actual centralization. It centralizes around the token, and that's inherent to those systems. But when you have a system where new people and new communities coming into the ecosystem can spin up their own distributions and don't have to rely on the core one, what you get is actual decentralization. And that comes with strengths and weaknesses.
I'll make some predictions. I think that Adam, what I really like to also, give some honest feedback as well. Like, I've talked to core contributors that are still involved in Adam, and there is an understanding of needing for improvement, which I find really positive. And there's an understanding also that the way it's been done the last couple of years is, whether or not that was the right decision back then, that's not for me to decide. I don't have, I'm not the right one to decide that. But there is definitely an agreement that things need to change moving forward, which I find, again, really exciting. There's a lot of things that are good about a bear market. Obviously, everyone hurts, numbers are down. However, when a ship goes into really rough waters, that's when you know which bolts and which screws are not as tight as others.
What flows.
You will notice which gaps between the wooden panels are too wide and let water in. And that's when you can get back into the harbor and fix those issues. It's the opposite of the...
I love the boating analogies.
It's the opposite of the survivorship bias meme, right? With the plane.
Yeah.
Which is like to get people up to speed, right? Plane comes back from World War II. They were looking at where holes are being hit so they can know where to reinforce. Same amount of planes get shot down. Why? Because you need to reinforce where there is no bullet holes of planes that come back, because they obviously were able to come back. And then the opposite of that is you know where to reinforce if you hit rough waters. And I think that is something that's actually really exciting for Adam, because there is a lot of people that want to make Adam a continuous success. And there's a lot of people that want to get there. And I think now that we are in this kind of no bullshit bear market where there's no distractions, there's no infinite amounts of liquidity just pouring in left and right for, like, after one Twitter announcement, right? Like, Twitter announcements don't move token prices anymore. Like, those times are over.
Thank God. Like, that always drove me crazy. The whole chain link strategy always cracks me up.
Yeah, but now we're in a period where product updates are doing that, where user growth are doing that, where TVL growth is doing that. And I think that Adam, in my opinion, missed the mark with ICS, but it doesn't mean it's going to continue.
Controversial opinion, Valentin.
I don't think so.
Missed the mark with ICS.
So, and I will be honest. So you mentioned Prop 74, right? 72, like the neutral prop. I don't think that was a mistake. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the current ICS chains or Stride joining, for that matter, I don't think those are mistakes. I think that...
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with you either, Valentin, but this is something that people don't like to say. But yeah,
I want to make sure that people don't already go to Twitter in this very second without letting me finish and say... So I think the mark was missed because it is a really highly concentrated bet that is a bit anti-thesis to what Cosmos as an ecosystem has been positioning itself. If we if we look at mesh security, it hits every single mark of the Cosmos thesis. Economic alignment, which started with IBC and now goes into staking alignment and economic value alignment. It goes from app chain thesis to a specific product, and now a connected bunch of products. That's a check mark with mesh security. upside sharing and incentive alignment. That's a check mark. In ICS, it's basically a very binary, huge success or failure, depending on how the numbers plan out moving forward. But there isn't really a structure that is as equal eye to eye with ICS as it is with mesh security. And it's actually, we have yet to find out who is in the upper position, right? We don't even know yet if it's going to be Atom, just basically having a massive inflow of capital for security guarantees that is much higher than it could have otherwise gotten, or if ICS chains get ridiculously cheap security because the numbers don't pan out, right? We have yet to see that. It's an experiment. I don't want to count unhatched eggs and already call it, but as you've mentioned with the meme of the betting everything on ICS, I think it is not controversial. I've voiced it on Twitter as well. Atom needs cosmosm. It's not that. It's not that complicated. However,
I'm a go maxi. I don't write Rust, and I think Atom needs cosmosm.
Jack, before you go any further, I will have to say though, Atom 2.0 read like a freaking omnibus bill. Like,
I totally understand folks' concerns around that.
I get why people vetoed it, because it was so much in one thing. And the issue with omnibus bills for non-American listeners is that it's basically bills that are this big, 700 pages, that the senators get 40 minutes before, and it's being called one of the arbitrary 500 topics that are addressed in this bill. And then if it passes, everything goes into effect. So an omnibus bill being called Save the Streets and has 700 pages is going to have 10 pages about funding for streets and 680 pages about arbitrary different stuff. And if you have any disagreement with that, suddenly this bill is never going to pass, which never happens. People just voted in to get those kind of initial things in. And I think the same issue was with Atom 2.0. It was just a freaking omnibus bill. People had rightful concerns on some details. It was just 1,000 things. It should have been 10 consecutive different proposals. And I think that's something where maybe the Atom community, the proposers, wink, wink, could take away from is maybe, take it step by step. You don't propose marriage on the first date. That's kind of what I say in a lot of pitches.
Yeah, it's, I think that it's, that's the way it worked out. And I think the folks who proposed Atom 2.0, we've been working on this thing for a long time. Yeah. And when I talked earlier about how the Cosmos Hub didn't really have a vision in the white paper, and it was just like this blockchain that embodies these ideas, and it's going to be the center of this thing. What we tried to do is looking at the competitive environment at the time, what would it require for Atom to be the center and the hub for this universe of blockchains? Let's lay out this vision and let's get buy-in. And I think that there's a lot of things to talk about on the execution side there that didn't go right, but I do stand by trying to put it all up for a vote at once. I think it was the right move.
Well, the beautiful thing about a conversation, which is rarely done nowadays, is we don't have to end on.
I know. We can agree to disagree.
Which the nice thing about agreements or disagreements in Cosmos is that we both know we care. So it's not a disagreement by, F you. It's a disagreement by, well, we are a pretty diverse set of people with really diverse backgrounds that have different opinions of how to get something done. But, and that's to, I guess, close the Atom topic, I think everyone wants to get it done.
Yeah, I hope so. So normally this is the point in time when we ask for questions. I see only one question in the chat, and it's about Thorchain.
Interesting.
Valentin, what do you think? Atom needs to do something to compete with Thorchain. What do you think?
Fascinating question. I think that's like, hey Valentin, how do you think we can fix the economy of the United States? Like, okay, give me a minute to think about arguments. No, I mean it is a fair question. I think Thorchain is a very interesting project, which I actually one of the few that are not IBC that move out of like one of the few projects I use to move assets not using IBC when it comes to out of Cosmos. And I found the user experience acceptable, to be honest, which like that's the best you can get without using IBC in my book. So how does it compete? I mean, it goes fundamentally down to the aggregation standpoint, right? ThorChain, if anything, is an aggregation product that allows you to move assets between chains, right? Fundamentally, like IBC is just outside of IBC. Well, ThorSwap, that is, excuse me. ThorSwap is what I'm focusing on. ThorChain is more, but I think ThorSwap is the killer application. So I'm going to stick with that comparison. I mean, if you ask the current Atom plan, then it would be having an ICS chain that is similar to Axelar, right? I mean, that would be the answer in the current roadmap. If you ask me, how would Atom, with how it's put in right now, become a competitor? Well, it would have an Axelar-like ICS chain. Now, if you ask me, and what I think would be the best approach is CosmWasm on the hub, excuse me. And then you could have, again, for internal transfers of assets, obviously using IBC, and then for external assets, have a bridging protocol, which I have said this 1,000 times, and I keep saying this. I do not like bridges that are not IBC. That is just my honest, like, I'm saying, but if there is no IBC, it is the necessary evil and the best we can have at this very moment.
Bingo.
But you should move to IBC in the long run, which is why there is so many teams building out IBC to other ecosystems, such as you guys and a lot of other folks, which is really exciting.
Shout out Union team. I think that's a good answer. Yeah, I think, you know, it's really easy to, like, the way that I've always viewed the Atom strategic place is we need to sell services to this network we've created. And, you know, we need the tools to do that too. CosmWasm is just a tool. And I think there's a general misunderstanding of the difference between smart contracts and building your own Cosmos chain. And I like to think that they're fundamentally the same thing. You know, writing a module in your Cosmos chain is just a smart contract that's built into the chain. In EVM, they call them precompiles. And, you know, the smart contracts themselves are just logic. And if you're going to put CosmWasm on the hub, if it's permission, it's the exact same thing. It's just deploying new.
No, Jack, it's not the same, because this is obviously clearly incredibly controversial because of Lean Hub. Duh.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that this just goes to like the education side of things. Like, there's folks involved and who have bought into this project from various different backgrounds and various levels of understanding of the technology and various you know, goals, like visions of what they see happening with this thing. And like, this is simultaneously the beauty and pain of decentralization. Well, Valentin, as we reach the top of the hour here, do you have any last questions for me? Shout out DYDX t-shirt, by the way. That shit is hot.
Oh yeah, this is high quality, but it's stitched and very nice. I got it from their office, which is really cool, by the way. DYDX doing a lot of things right, which, you know, is like, yeah, good job on their team. Yeah, shout out to Paul, BD lead there. Yeah, last questions. I mean, what is going to save Cosmos, Jack? Open-ended.
IBC.
Amen.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, you know,
what is going to save IBC?
What is going to save IBC?
What do you mean, Valeo? Well, I mean that IBC fundamentally being a protocol that is consensus level is super hard to integrate, right? You have like...
Oh, I've got a great answer for this. I know exactly what's going to save IBC.
You have the right solution, the great solution, the TCP/IP-like, the thing that should be everywhere. But because it is the right and great solution, it is a piece of shit to integrate with non-Cosmos ecosystem chains, because it's so deeply integrated. Like, it's such a deep integration versus, haha, look, me and my 3 buddies made a multi-sig and now you can move assets. Beep boop. So
yeah,
how do we make IBC go beyond Cosmos, even though it's so hard to integrate?
Yeah, I think that the answer here is we need to embrace router technology. And this is what Strangelove is doing. Like, in complex networks, there is topology. I think that the fundamental value of the internet is that any two computers can connect with each other. But if you look at the technical reality of how that happens, it happens through a series of intermediaries. And there need to be points where data basically is routed in this network. And those routers bring the last mile connection to places that are hard to reach with the core protocol. So with this in mind, that's why we've taken working with Wormhole and Hyperlane to help.
Oh, you're dropping this 3 minutes before the hour, Jack. Come on, I'm gonna have to say so for the community.
Well, I mean, we can go a little bit over. I don't have to be. Oh, I actually do. I've got to go talk to the Wormhole team right after this. Yeah, I think that we save IBC by embracing these routers and stopping to try to pretend like they're competitive, and seeing that we all share a vision of all of these different blockchains connected with as permissionless rails as possible. And that there's a place for these service providers within the interchain that are effectively these routers to help come in and play that role. And I think if we try to deny that, we lapse into obscurity. But if we embrace that and build IBC semantics so that application developers can use the IBC interfaces to send packets throughout the entire network, relying on one or potentially multiple routers, that enables us to get IBC everywhere from a developer perspective, and then work to continually increase the security on the back end. And like this is the direction that IBC needs to go in order for us to retain competitiveness.
This right here, listeners, is why there needs to be a structure for IBC decision making. I'm going to leave it very open-ended like this, but wow. many.
I appreciate you, sir. This is all of my hobby horses right here. Every single one of them.
Well, many teams, listeners out there, are aware of the hardness to integrate IBC, and we all know that IBC needs to expand because it is our arc reactor, and we would be pretty bad Tony Starks if we didn't realize the thing that saves us from death and is an unlimited energy source inside our heart is something to scoff at. So there's a lot of work happening there, and to the point of consolidation, which is maybe a nice point to end on right exact the hour, IBC teams are consolidating on understanding how to do IBC, how to move IBC forward. There is different opinions knowingly within the ecosystem between Strangelove and Interchain Berlin, exactly, right now, Interchain GmbH. However, again, we talked about agreeing to disagreeing. There seems to be a consolidation around figuring out a structure by which we agree on what the path is, even if someone may disagree on either side of that question. And I think that is the beauty of structures like the European Union, the United States, where Alabama could not be further from California or New York. However, everyone agreed and subscribed to a common structure by which decisions are made, sometimes in favor of one state, sometimes in favor of the other state. And IBC is equally as faceted. I don't know if that's an English word, different. And the teams that look at IBC have equally different opinions, but we are agreeing that we consolidate how to move this forward, and teams are working on this. It's not going to be easy or fast. It's going to be we're going to have growing pains, and democratic systems and decentralized systems are designed to have contradicting opinions that need to be ironed out. We just need to fix the structure in which that happens. And I'm pretty freaking excited for the future of Cosmos because we're doing that on every single front. We're figuring out how to solve problems together.
Well, this is a good reminder to like and subscribe. So instead of like and comment, well, let's like and subscribe. Thank you guys very much for your time. Really appreciate that. And the last 5 minutes of that show were by far the best. So thank you for that, Valentin. I appreciate it.
For sure.
Sisla, see you guys next week. Sisla, do we have a guest that we can announce for next week yet? I feel like we decided already, right?
While you're waiting on... Oh,
no, we don't. Okay. So we are still looking for a guest for next week, but we will have somebody. We'll see you back here. Same bat time, same bat channel. Thank you guys very much. Everyone have a good one.